Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Any devotee chanting food should be wearing gloves. Ramuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakachadas Tarasata Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki BBT Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to the assembled devotees Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Nothing like an ice-cold garland to wake you up, right out of the refrigerator. Okay, we're reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled Krishna's Great Soldier. September 14th, with no disruptive incidents, Srila Prabhupada arrived with his party in Bombay, where he was promptly escorted from the plane into a waiting car and driven to Hare Krishna land at Juhu. This time the elevator worked, and Srila Prabhupada reached his quarters on the 5th floor and went at once to bed. He called for Giriraj, who came and sat on the floor beside the bed. Srila Prabhupada told him how in Vrindavan, Mr. Somaya, a very important man of Bombay, known to both of them, had come to see him in bed and had started to cry out of sympathy. Prabhupada then told Giriraj of his pleasant stay in London, especially mentioning the kirtans, which he said were wonderful. When Giriraj asked if the chiseling and hammering and other noises of temple construction in Bombay were going to disturb him, he replied that it was like music. He then lay back and rested. When Prabhupada awoke at the end of the day, Tamal Krishna asked him if the noises were bothering him. "These sounds do not disturb me at all," he replied, "because I am thinking that work is being completed. You can note the distinction how in London I was feeling restless, but here not. It is because I like Bombay. Of all the cities in India, I like it the most." Srila Prabhupada wanted to get reports from some of his sannyasi disciples in Bombay. He heard good news from Gargamuni Swami of his party selling complete sets of Śrimad Bhāgavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also other books to libraries and universities throughout India. Now they were preparing to go into Muslim countries to sell books. "Whoever preaches in the Muslim countries," said Srila Prabhupada, I take the dust of his feet on my head. Lokanath Swami told Srila Prabhupada of his success in traveling to Indian villages in a bullock cart. Srila Prabhupada loved it. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 23rd chapter, texts 28 through 31. I'll just read 28, 29, 30, and then we'll chant 31. Snanena tam mahardena snapayat va manishvanim dukule nirmale nutne dador asyad samandalaha. The girls, being very respectful to Devahuti, brought her forth, and after bathing her with valuable oils and ointments, they gave her fine, new, spotless cloth to cover her body. Text 29. Bhushanani parardhyani varayangsi jumanticha anang savaganopetam panang chaivamritasavam. They then decorated her with very excellent and valuable jewels which shone brightly. Next, they offered her food containing all good qualities and a sweet, inebriating drink called asabam. Purport: Asabam is an Ayurvedic medical preparation. It is not a liquor. It is especially made from drugs and is meant to improve metabolism for the healthy condition of the body. Text 30. Atar darashe samatmanang shragvinang virajambaram viranjan kritaswastyanang kanyabhirbhavamanitam. Then in a mirror she beheld her own reflection. Her body was completely freed from all dirt, and she was adorned with a garland. Dressed in unsullied robes and decorated with auspicious marks of tilak, she was served very respectfully by the maids. Text 31, and this will chant. Natang krita shirakshnanang. Please repeat. Snatang krita shirakshnanang. Sarvabharana bhushitam.
Sarvabharana Bhushitam.
Sarvabharana bhushitam.
Sarvabharana Bhushitam.
Nishkagrivam balayinang. Nishkagrivam balayanam.
Nishkagrivam Balayinam.
Kujat kanchana nuparam.
Kujat Kanchana Nuparam.
Kujat kanchana nuparam.
Kujat Kanchana Nuparam.
Please chant. Natan krita shiraknanam. Sarvabharana bhushitam. Nishkagrivam balayanam. Kujat kanchana nuparang. Natan krita shiraksnanam. Sarvabharana bhushitam. Nishkagrivam balayinam. Kujat kanchana nuparam. Natam krita shiraksnanam. Sarvabharana bhushitam. Nishkagrivam balayanam. Kujat kanchana nuparam. Natam krita shiraksnanam. Sarvabharana bhushitam. Nishkagrivam balayanam. Kujat kanchana nuparam. Nadam Chittachinak Snanam Sava Bharana Bhushitam Nishkagrivang Valayanang Kujat Kanchananupuram. Ladies. Natan Krita Shirak Snanam Sava Bharana Bhushitam Nishkagrivam Valayanam Kujat Kanchananuparam Snatang bathed Kritashira, including the head. Snanam, bathing. Sarva, all over. Abharana, with ornaments. Bhushitam, decorated. Nishka, a gold necklace with a locket. Grivam, on the neck. Valayanam, with bangles. Kujat, tinkling. Kanchana, made of gold. Nuparam, ankle bells. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word Krita Shira Snanam appears here. According to the Smriti Shastra's directions for daily duties, ladies are allowed to bathe daily up to the neck. The hair on the head does not necessarily have to be washed daily because the mass of wet hair may cause a cold. For ladies, therefore, taking a bath up to the neck is ordinarily prescribed, and they take a full bath only on certain occasions. On this occasion, Devahuti took a full bath and washed her hair very nicely. When a lady takes an ordinary bath, it is called Malasnan, and when she takes a full bath, including the head, it is called Shirak Snan. At this time, she needs sufficient oil to smear on her head. That is the direction of the commentators of Smriti Shastra. Om Jnana Tamranda Shagananjana Slakaya Chaksho Amritamira Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankayate Gurim Yat Kripatam Bande Shri Gurum Dinatanam. When I was reading this, I was thinking of Allen Ginsberg and how he commented that hearing from Srila Prabhupada, he used the term Hindu granny wisdom. Hindu granny wisdom. So this was, everyone has some experience receiving some instructions from his grandmother or grandfather, as the case may be. And this was certainly, Prabhupada was saying so many things like this that no one had ever heard. And in these details, we were receiving cultural information from someone who had experienced multiple cultures. And many devotees had left home at an early age and had no relationship with their family members. And so in one sense, Srila Prabhupada was not just grandmother, grandfather, but also father and mother. This is a very special relationship that we see Srila Prabhupada had with his disciples, very intimate. It was not just some official, as we've seen in so many places where there's simply a mercantile exchange, that you give some money and you get a mantra. But Prabhupada took charge of his disciples' life completely, even up to the point where he was giving instructions on every aspect of daily life. So this is unique. And in one sense, we can see how this affected Prabhupada's disciples and endeared him in a special way to them. And this attachment, for want of a better term, became their devotional focus. Because we see mukam karoti vachalam pangum lankai digrim, that this is a very special opportunity. One doesn't get it Prabhupada gave the example one time that the opportunity to meet a bona fide spiritual master. There's many spiritual masters everywhere. Prabhupada said every alley in Calcutta is a guru factory. He termed it like that. Every alley in Calcutta is a guru factory. He said, but he described that the actual meeting, that after many millions of births, is like in the middle of the ocean. You have a piece of wood floating, and in that wood there is a hole. It is called a knot hole. But there's a hole in the wood. Everyone has seen it. That hole in the wood is called a knot hole. He said, so this piece of wood is floating in the ocean. And the ocean is vast. Who can imagine how vast the ocean is? And that in this vast ocean, one turtle or tortoise pokes his head up when he surfaces, and it goes directly through that hole in that piece of wood. He said that is the chance that one will get a bona fide spiritual master. Practically nil. And we've seen that. Before Prabhupada's coming, so many people had come before. Some people say, oh, so many gurus came, and so many, even Gaudiya came. There's so many people came in the 30s and the 20s and like that. And, of course, many came. But what was the result? Palam parachiyate. You have to judge a thing by the result. And so this is a perspective that, of course, anyone can have now. What do they say? Hindsight is 20/20. Hindsight is 20/20. No one could believe that such a situation, just by one lone sannyasi coming across the ocean, that such a movement could happen like this. And it happened because of this relationship that Prabhupada established with his disciples, that they would do anything for him. Otherwise, it was not possible. When there's a business relationship, at a certain point, the return exceeds the input, or the input exceeds the return. One no longer wants to do the work. He walks off the job. He quits. He says, I'm not getting paid enough for this. So the currency in this relationship, though, is nothing material. Otherwise, how could Prabhupada used to say, I am a beggar sannyasi. What can I offer to them? They're all coming from rich families. So what are they getting? Guru Krishna Kripai Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. Prabhupada's garland came down. If you could just fix that. So sometimes we can also go very philosophically. And of course, this point about Hindu granny wisdom, about this bathing, who would know? Mala snan. Who would know such a term? In one sense, mala means bad. It also means beads. It means so many things. But here it means half bath. So that the ladies aren't required to take full bath every day. As a matter of fact, in the brahmachari ashrams in India, one term that's used in order to chastise someone is that he took a lady's bath. All right, so you hear that, it means he didn't take full bath, he didn't get his head wet. He took a lady's bath. So no brahmachari wants to be told, or he took a lady's bath, or anyone, really. Right. So everyone, in the Krishna conscious especially, and there's so many restrictions, but, as far as the men are concerned, we have no problem to take full bath every day. All right, so that's there. But so many things are coming from Srila Prabhupada's association. When he was, I was listening to some lectures in Bombay in 1974, and Prabhupada was saying, we have just finished publishing this third canto. And we all remember at that time. And Prabhupada didn't give any lectures on 23rd chapter. 22nd, some on 24, but everything on 25, because 25 is very special, devotional service. So he gave month and a half lectures in Bombay, from 1st November to December 12th, mid-December. Only on this chapter that we'll be entering into, that goes the glories of devotional service. And I remember when we received this initially, and we eagerly awaited all of Prabhupada's publications. There wasn't any internet. You couldn't go out there and get all of Prabhupada's books. You know, occasionally that, you know, because we were living in Brooklyn, and there was the press. So maybe some of the editors would get the advanced copies to do proofreading, and so we would get to hear some. And we felt ourselves very lucky in this regard. And of course, in Prabhupada was giving the lectures, and these cassette tapes would circulate all over the world. Someone would come from Bombay and he'd bring a tape, and it would be duplicated. And then they would go all over the country like that to every existing temple. So that was a very rudimentary means of distributing this nectar, listening to Prabhupada's words. And everyone was so eager to receive this. And of course, we know that eagerness, utsaha nishtayat daryat, that this enthusiasm has to be at every level of your devotion, not just in your kirtan, or your pravachan, or your bhajan, or your eating prasadam. This enthusiasm has to be in every aspect. People think that enthusiasm only means dancing. All right, but what about the enthusiasm when you're up and cleaning the toilets in the brahmacharya ashram? Where's your enthusiasm? If you manifest the enthusiasm and that service, that will cement your devotion. Because if you can be enthusiastic there, you can be enthusiastic anywhere. One time I was cleaning the toilets in Henry Street, and I confess I wasn't very fond of cleaning the toilets. I did it. And as I was cleaning the toilets, and my mind was telling me why I shouldn't be cleaning these toilets, and that I was above this, and I should be back out on the streets doing some other nonsense, I decided, okay, the only way I'm going to finish this is if I can chant loudly to overwhelm the mind with the holy name. But you get a little lost out of time and circus. So I'm chanting loudly, and I'm in the toilet. And all of a sudden, I see these two lotus feet walk in the room. And so I immediately shut up. I said, this can't be good. Here's Prabhupada. I'm screaming. Why does he come into the toilet? Because some fool is screaming at the top of his lungs in the toilet. So I said, okay. So I paid my obeisances, and I waited quietly for Srila Prabhupada to leave. So this, I was obviously creating a disturbance. But in the neophyte stage, chanting the holy names is our only solace at times. And if he doesn't take to that, then what happens? His mind overwhelms him. Because he didn't do the one thing that he was being trained up from the day he walked in the temple: how to control the mind. By the chanting, by the taking prasadam, by the service. It's not some, mechanical issue. If we can't cry out in love, when in these situations, then when will we do it? We're thinking, what, at the time of death? All of a sudden, automatically, I'll manifest all this affection for the spiritual master and Krishna. No, it has to be every day, every aspect of the day, every aspect of your service. And then, yes, at the time of death, you will remember Krishna, and he will remember you. So we have to have some presence of mind, in the daily course of our activities. That yes, we're doing all these things, and sometimes to some observer, it may not appear that this is devotional service. Someone is fixing something. Mukunda Ashray is downstairs working very diligently, It could be the scene from any mechanic workshop. But for those who know, this is pure devotional service. There's ahoitikiya pratiyata ye yatma supasidati. Anyabhilasata sunyam. This is the very definition of devotional service. Without motivation. Without motivation. So we have many opportunities throughout the day to express that in our activities. And we can even consider it as we're doing it, that yes, if not for Srila Prabhupada, if not for the Guru Parampara, there's no way I would be doing these things. I wouldn't be packing cookies. I'd be out on the street making $1 million. But by Krishna's mercy, we have poked our head through that knothole in the piece of wood floating in the ocean and come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. Very rare. There are some gloves here, Manaji, if you want to help. Can you slide those gloves over that way? Just. So here now these cookies are being prepared. In the old days we had glubjamins, and Prabhupada called them ISKCON bullets. And what is the function of a bullet? A bullet pierces the heart and it kills the body. But the ISKCON bullets, what are they doing? We're swallowing them, and it's immediately having this overwhelming effect, like a nuclear explosion. And the whole body is being permeated by the radiation of pure devotional service that's went into making them, preparing them, and distributing them. And so this prasadam is a secret weapon. No one can, from a material perspective, estimate how powerful prasadam is. Just one drop of charanamrita, one piece of crumb, and of course the devotees, we're very fortunate that we have access to so much purification, every minute of the day, in the form of devotional activities, taking Krishna prasadam, associating with Krishna's devotees, and preparing to these special festivals where tens of thousands of people will come in contact with their consciousness, with Krishna consciousness, many for the first time. Many for the first time. But it's guaranteed that it will not be their last time. It's guaranteed. Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. They will have opportunity to meet the devotees again in this lifetime or in the next lifetime. So that's why this is para upakara. And one has to remember that when he's doing this. It's not that I'm doing this because my temple authority told me I have to go out, I have to do this. There's no question of force. Actually, without having some conscious effort, then there's no success. One has to be thinking how I can please Krishna, the spiritual master. Then I can distribute these books. It is not a technique. Yes, we benefit from some learning certain approaches just to stop the living entity because he's rushing so madly, hither and thither. On the side of the subway trains in New York, they have a logo. Does anyone know what the logo of the New York subway trains are? The MTA? What's the logo? Come on, you're all supposed to be New Yorkers now. The logo is a man in a suit and a tie with his tie being swept back. He's rushing. He's called the Russian commuter. That's the logo. Because the trains, you have to rush to get the train. Everywhere in New York, you have to rush. So that Russian computer, not Russian, rushing. So the Russian commuter is the logo for the New York City subway, MTA. You know, it's sort of tongue-in-cheek. That's New York. Everything in New York has a little bit of an edge to it. And that's okay. That's why we like New York. You know, everything in New York is very real. You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything. You know, so there's a... I remember being on the subway with Pancharatna one time, and we used to have what's called a standing rule. You know what the standing rule is? You can't sit down on the subway because devotees would sit and they would sleep and then they would drool and it didn't look very nice. So we used to have what's called a standing rule. No devotees were allowed to sit down on the subway. Because we worked hard all day long. We slept 5 hours a night maximum. And as soon as you sit down, it's just like in Bhagavatam class, you know. You see that there's always some devotees who are sleeping in the Bhagavatam class. You know. I remember one time when Bhavananda Prabhu, and then Maharaj was giving class in Henry Street, and Jayadvaita Maharaj was falling asleep. And Bhavananda dipped his danda and smacked Jayananda Maharaj on the head with it. There's interesting pastimes. But these things, so devotees, you know, aren't good for sitting down. You know, and Prabhupada, in their class in Mayapur, I remember Prabhupada stopping the class, says, why sleep, why sleep? Go upstairs. The devotee was sitting down and sleeping. He said, why sleeping? Go upstairs. So there's, you know, it's not, you know, devotees stand. That's what we did. When Prabhupada came to give lecture, you always see all the devotees standing on the side. And that was the reason. You sat down, you slept. And nobody wanted to be the focus of Srila Prabhupada's attention to hear that, you know, why are you sleeping? Why are you sleeping? So we stood up. That's okay. We heard. So one has to have that determination, though. Otherwise, he thinks, yeah, I'll just sit down. No. The nectar flowing from the lips of the spiritual master purifies even the darkest hearts. You know, so this is what we experienced. You know, and it can still be, and why do we place such emphasis on hearing from the spiritual master, you know? Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Kuriya Aikya. You know, because it purifies my consciousness. You know, so what's the most effective way? Then I should constantly hear it. And now, of course, in the old days we used to just, you know, flip the cassette tape. But now you don't have to do that. Now it's continuous stream. You have these those little recorders, you put them on, and they'll go on forever. You can just listen continuously, 2,300 lectures. So there's no excuse not to hear from the spiritual master. No excuse. You know, you wake up in the morning, you turn it on, you listen. Wherever you go, you have it. And this is, you know, I mean, it's an open secret, not a closed secret, it's an open secret. The more you hear from Srila Prabhupada, the more the dirty things are flying from the heart. They can't stay. You have to hear, you have to acknowledge, and you have to accept or not accept. It's your choice. We're the independent living entity. You don't have to accept. We need more cookies. They ran out of cookies to beg. Where's the cookies? Call Jagadatti. We need more cookies, Pancharatna. There's no more. That's it?
Well,
That's it for this batch?
that's all that's cooked.
Okay.
The rest is coming. But we have other services. So as soon as it's finished, I'll give you back.
That's not enough for 15,000 people. I know, it's only 1,500 on the road, right?
Yeah, no, this is, we have another couple of boxes there, so, and there's this much left. So we still have
Okay.
500 or so left.
Very special, ISKCON bullets.
Yeah,
So we have a lot to do today. There's so much service, so much nectar. The opportunity to have this experience. Many people, after years, they remember their first Rath Yatra, or the first time Srila Prabhupada came, the first time they had that sense of excitement, enthusiasm. My god sister Mahamaya, who will be coming after for a couple of weeks in July, and she hasn't been to New York in a long time. She used to live on 55th Street, Henry Street, short while, but she'll be coming with Mother Nanda and my wife, and they'll, help out in the Pujari area and do things like that. So she wrote a book called, what was it called? Prabhupada is Coming. Because that's for days before Prabhupada would come. That's all everyone would think about. Prabhupada is coming. The whole temple would be completely alive with activity. It was amazing. And we'd like everybody to experience that, but it's not artificial. You have to dive into it. And when you dive into it, you tap into something you didn't, maybe you haven't even recognized or realized yet. How this enthusiasm is so enlivening. It is the anandam buddhivardhanam. It is the nectar for which we are always anxious. And we say that regularly, but do people actually understand what that is? So this is the opportunity to taste that nectar for which we are always anxious. To get fully absorbed, to not be thinking about, oh, I got to take rest, I got to do this, I got to read a book. No. Just engage, fully engage all your senses. You're not fully engaged with all your senses, even when you can't take prasadam and read a book at the same time, or take prasadam and read a book and distribute a book and clean the floor. No. But when you're engaging all of your senses in some aspect of the Rath Yatra and thinking about Lord Jagannath, working on packing the cookies, packing the bags, meditating on how you're going to make the festival so nice, whatever aspect it is, you completely forget about your material situation. And that is the highest platform. And if you can taste that platform, then you will never leave Krishna consciousness. You will always remember that. And this is how we remember when Srila Prabhupada came. We have that remembrance. We have that feeling. And so we'd hope that everyone at some point gets that little exposure to that rasagraha. The term is called rasagraha. Once having tasted that nectar, one can never forget. You can never forget. Of course, it's related to the fact that rasagraha means the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet. Just like here we see that there's these maidens. Must be where they get the term mermaid, right? Maid and mer. So mer means sea in French and another, probably Spanish also, mar. Mar means sea. So mermaid means a maid of the sea. So you have these thousands of maids in the sea taking care of Devahuti. And how are they described? That their bodies had the aroma of lotuses. So that's a smell. Once you've smelled, it's like even a simple gardenia. Anyone who smelled a gardenia once, you can't forget that smell. Or the oil which is offered to the deities and then distributed. Once you smell that aroma, everything else appears inferior. Everything else appears inferior. So this is the higher taste. So we have to keep getting that higher and higher taste. And of course, for us, the highest taste is that service to Krishna, the service to the spiritual master. The highest taste is not being absorbed in some philosophical speculation, an attempt to distinguish oneself from others in such a way that he gains some reputation and say, oh, this is a very smart person. No, this is not what we're looking for. Hopefully. You know. One should be satisfied even doing the most menial service. What is the difference? You think that there's any difference between a person who is engaged in simple service in the temple and someone who goes and, meets the Prime Minister of India? No, it's not. There's no difference. That service is exactly the same, Prabhupada said. Whether you're sweeping the temple or you're dressing the deity, it's exactly the same. So if one is simple at heart, then for him there's no difficulty. So isn't that a smart thing to do, to avoid difficulty? If one can remain simple, simple for the simple-hearted, difficult for the crooked. Another one of those Hindu granny wisdoms that Prabhupada would give us. It's not in the Shastra. No one's going to say it's from this Upanishad or that place, no. But this is a Prabhupada-ism. Simple for the simple at heart, difficult for the crooked. So by all means, become simple and remain simple. Don't make your life complicated. There's no profit. Become a simple devotee. What greater, what is that? They call it an epitaph. When a person dies, they put a little saying on the gravestone. Here lies such and such. I think Benjamin Franklin had a good one, right? What was that? It said, here lies something, something. And like an old book, he'll come out again new, with a new cover. Because a lot of these old founding fathers in America were what they call transcendentalists. They believed in reincarnation. They weren't the Christians that we experience on a day-to-day basis, no. The same was there for Thoreau and Emerson. So they had a name, transcendentalists. They didn't believe in the deification that Christianity had become. So we want to continue with some questions. We have some time because then it's a very, very busy day. Any questions or comments, Bhakti Ryan? I give Bhakti Ryan first chance every time. Yes, Ram Roy. Okay, so he's first. Michael, just speak. All you do is come close to this mic. It's better. I can hear, they can hear, we can all hear. Yeah.
And one could refer to that very indication. So you don't have to turn to pharmaceutical model things.
We used to hear all those. Yeah. Every time one was to make a paste of black pepper for a headache and put it on your temples. Everybody knew that in the temple in those days. How to make toothpaste from mustard oil, salt, soda bicarbonate, Brush your teeth. We didn't buy toothpaste in those days. We didn't have such thing. Prabhupada's formula. It's famous. So we knew all those things. Nowadays, everybody just wants to buy, some guy who lives in Maine. They want to buy his toothpaste. But Prabhupada gave us the formula, so what's the problem? But he told when one of the, and these things are all passed down. So one time my guy brother Bhakta Jana, Prabhupada personally told him how to cure a cold. And Prabhupada knew all these things. You cure a cold by, what do they say? Feed a cold, starve a fever. Right? Everybody's heard that one. Feed a cold, starve a fever. So Prabhupada's formula for feeding a cold was chickpea halava with honey. You can't cook the honey. You roast the chickpea grains in butter or ghee, whatever. Make them nice and golden. And then, after you puff them up with the water, take it off the flame and you mix in the honey. And that was Prabhupada's formula for cold, because it's packed with protein and antioxidants. Antioxidants. Honey is an antioxidant, a very natural antioxidant. So there's nature has given us everything, and Prabhupada is just reminding us how far up we've gone away from natural living. Simple living, high thinking. So we need to come back to that. And yes, hearing from Rupanuga after such a long time is very wonderful. So, hopefully we'll hear more. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhu, you had a question.
I think you already answered it.
We're very eager to serve Prabhupada in this location because he gave us the most wonderful deities of Radha Govinda. And so we're very much attached to their lotus feet. They are our shelter. And that's why it's called the Ashraya Vigraha also. Not just Archa Vigraha, but Ashraya. I mean, we take shelter. If you cannot, in your mind, find your situation, just like you have your GPS. Sometimes people say that he's lost his way. What does that mean, he's lost his way? When you have a compass, it shows true north. And so if you know how to use a compass, you never get lost. But a lot of times people will say he lost his way. But what does that mean? Sometimes it's because he lost his moral compass. He doesn't know that engaging these activities will actually get him lost from the path of morality, the path of spirituality. Just like the GPS. So one should have that internal sense of direction, which way I'm going. And automatically, now even in cars, I was driving my daughter's car. They have the latest, greatest, everything. It's got so many bells and whistles. All of a sudden, it's making sound, and you wonder, is that a good thing or a bad thing? What does it mean? My daughter told me it's because it senses motion when you go towards another lane. So it knows exactly that you're between two lines that denote the lane. I said, but I'm in the lane. He said, no, but you're a little bit to this side. So I said, can you shut it off? She said, yes, okay, shut it off. I don't need a machine telling me how to drive. But we do need the association of devotees. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So this is our constant companion. If we want it, don't be foolish and separate yourself from the association of devotees for any reason. Some will say, oh, I don't like to be this person, does it? No. Don't give in to your mind's excuses. Bandhu atmat manastasya. The mind is the best friend or the worst enemy. Don't let it become. If it's telling you that, no, these devotees, they're not proper. Fine, the mind will make some excuse. Oh, I saw this devotee. He used his left hand to hand the spoon to somebody. It's like, who does that? But yes, there are people. I've seen it. I saw one devotee, brahmachari in India, criticize, a sannyasi because when he took off his shoes, he picked them up with his left hand and he put them on the shoe rack. And then I think he walked into the temple room because there was no place for water. And that devotee was saying, oh, just see these Western devotees. Malechas. It shouldn't be like that. What's the point to criticize some useless thing like that? That's like seeing a spot on the moon All right? The moon is giving so much benefit, controlling the tides, controlling the boundaries of the ocean so that the ocean doesn't overflow, giving growth to vegetation. Right? But someone says, oh, look, there's a spot on the moon. So actually that spot is in that person's eye. And he's simply projecting it on the moon. That's my experience. That we see faults in others because we have these unresolved faults within ourselves. Isn't that a fact? Right, Dr. Ryan? So the opportunity is there for us to rectify the fault, but instead we just project it on someone else. So this is not good. This is actually a mental illness. So we want to follow in the footsteps of our predecessor acharyas, our senior God brothers and God sisters, and we want to take full advantage of the rich legacy that is being passed down and preserved. This is our duty, not to adulterate, not to give in to some whimsical, capricious tendency to change things. Prabhupada said, this is your Western disease. You want to change things. This is your Western. But it's not just a Western disease. We see it's everywhere. It was a Western disease, but then like everything else in the West, it's imported, exported everywhere else. So now this Western disease has been exported all over the world, in every town and country, right? Where it should be the holy name, the pure sound vibration. You know, so we don't want to be known as the International Society for Politics. We have a joke saying that in ISKCON, with amongst our God brothers and God sisters, we don't talk politics or religion. Okay? Because there's always something to argue about. What's the point? You know, one should understand what was the convincing point? In my situation, it was reading Bhagavad Gita and hearing from Srila Prabhupada. There's a convincing point. Nothing will ever change that. You know, so once you have that grounding, then if you can just maintain that connection, then you're secure. It's a tether, it's a connection. You will always have that anchor. But if you foolishly extend it for whatever reason, just like you see sometimes, you have a very strong rope, but if it's against a sharp edge, it becomes abraded. And even that strong, thick rope, after time, will break. You know, so we're taking all this effort to grow this creeper, the Bhakti Lata Bij. We shouldn't put it against any sharp objects like Maya. She's the sharpest object, and she comes in many forms, you know. So it may not appear very evident at first, you know, but gradually, as you associate with Maya, slowly, she's cutting through that creeper. And all of a sudden, one day, the creeper's down, and you didn't even know it happened. Right. So we have everything we need. We have every resource to maintain and expand our Krishna consciousness right here in the Association of Devotees, in the Association of Radha Govinda, in the Association of all this related service and activities. There's no lack. The only lack is whatever misconception we may carry. Like that. And even Devahuti, she wasn't thinking, how could she contemplate that there was this wonderful situation that could be free? She knew her husband was great. He could do so many things. And then in an instant, he created the city. But then because of her condition, she was embarrassed. And so understanding that, he arranged this, what do they call it now in the modern world, Mother Divyangi? A spa session. Right? That was probably the first one. You know, they massaged her, they gave her fragrant oils, they dressed her. That's a day, that's a ladies' day out. Go to the spa. I'm sure there were other things too. Manicure, pedicure, everything had to be there. And then she came out. She was a new lady. So that's the same thing. We come in, the devotees, I remember seeing all the devotees come in through the Bhakti program. Everybody had long, long hair. You know, they didn't look very clean, so to speak. You know, maybe they were clean. Maybe they weren't just taking lady showers, lady baths. But I would imagine that most of them were. And then, by the associated devotees, they cleaned up very nicely. They shaved their heads and then put on tilak, and they looked like they came from Vaikuntha. That transformation was complete, just like Devahuti's transformation. So we're associating with the most powerful yogi. All right? What is there a greater yogi than a pure devotee? I mean, Krishna is Yogeshwara. Huh? But can there be any greater yogi than the pure devotee? So we're associating with the greatest yogi. How fortunate are we? And we were transformed like Devahuti. But now we have to remain in that transformed state. Right? We don't, again, become a car. Right, Dr. Ryan? Transformers? I try to use some analogy that's common to the youthful generation. So they have Transformers. That was kids' toys, you know. Robot turns into a truck, and from a truck turns back into a robot. With all these different, you know, different types of weapons and guns and things like that. So we've been transformed. We don't need to go back. Now we just stay in that revived condition. And we keep ourselves in the association of devotees. And never leave. Bhakti Chū Maharaja, dear Garba, one thing he always told his disciples, said, yes, there may be disturbances, yes, there may be this, yes, there may be, but he said, never leave ISKCON. Never leave ISKCON. So somehow or other, I pray to Shri Radha Govinda that everyone always has their cup of devotion filled to the brim and overflowing, and that they never feel any lack or the need to go someplace else to experience Krishna consciousness. New York, the greatest city in the world. That's what Prabhupada told us. The greatest city in the world. And now, the greatest parade in the world, on the most famous street in the most famous city, is only 5 days away. Not even 5 days. Yeah, 5 full days, because including that day. Krishna Kripa Prabhu, you gotta speak loud. You come close to that mic.
Got a couple of comments. Class is awesome. Inspired me to think of things. I met a guy at the Times Square, and I said we have a free festival, and I was sitting in the car, and he was a little reluctant to accept it, like a lot of people. And but then he was talking with me, and he said, you know, one time I saw you guys had some big parade down to Dallas. And I said, yes, that's what this festival is. And so he'd seen it and he was attracted, but he was still, you know, shy to like being invited to something. So there's people out there, like you said, like tens of thousands of people come in contact for the first time, and then they'll definitely come in contact again.
And the fact that he remembered it, just like, you know, at the end of Krishna book, you know, it says, and if one remembers this pastime, he will never take birth again. So a person who's seen the Rath cart, you know, with the Sudarshan Chokra, this is as if he has gone to Jagannath Puri. He has seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested in that Rath, and he doesn't understand it. His darshan, his life has become perfect by seeing that Rath cart. His life has become perfect.
It's said about Dayananda Prabhu that Prabhupada said that if somebody sees Lord Jagannath of the car, at the end of their life, the scenes of their life will flash by, and then they'll see Jagannath, and then they'll go back to Godhead. And that was a motivating factor for Dayananda to do all these amazing rock festivals.
Sacrificed his life for others. This is the highest welfare activity. The definition, actually. I haven't heard any questions from the ladies' side. Oh, you have one more comment, okay.
You're talking about how they have this new device that will play all these Prabhupada lectures. So I was up in Radhadesh, and they actually have one that's permanently situated in the bathroom. And people, when they come in, they turn it on. When they leave, they turn it off. You know, but it's playing.
On 55th Street, yes, Prabhu. Yes, if you want the audience to hear, then you have to come closer. Because the phone has the mic.
Thank you very much for your lecture, Prabhu. It's very nice. My first time hearing you. Very happy to be here with all of you. So the topic is about association today. I really like that. I actually like a little request. So if you can learn how to say Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, I can teach you. You can share with everyone.
So we can share, everyone here?
Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. We were talking about association. So he said, so he's a Vaishnava, and the way he communicates with people is in sign language. So he would like to share how to say Hare Krishna Mahamantra, so we can communicate better and associate better.
Okay, so. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol. I'll try another time. We have to end the class. Krishna's flute. The ladies already know. See, they know. Haribo. Okay, so Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Krishna Prasadam ki, devotional service after Krishna Prasadam ki.